The US government wants to execute you right where you live, and then it wants to destroy you a second time on the level of who you are for society by labeling you a terrorist who has no defense whatsoever, no rights, no nothing. You're eradicated. The question is, how do you confront and find a way to live not with, but against this harrowing and difficult fact? And the answer is that you fight the psychic mechanisms that try to make this something that you can live with, that give you a buffer from this traumatic fact of your life. And all of these fantasy buffers, these ways of seeing people be executed on the street and then finding a way to move on with your life, all of those buffers and little payoffs are what the Democratic leadership is giving us. It's poor training. We just need to find a way for them to mobilize fully against the country nicely. Keep on recording. You guys are so great. We're really cheering you on. Don't worry, we'll really get them in the midterms or the trials that are definitely to come in the future. Obviously, recording their horrors is integral, and the cover that they provide themselves for their horrors is a brick of complete, utter nonsense. And that's the point. To say, blah, 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 we don't have to say anything in response other than blah, 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 and we're going to keep committing this violence against you, the American people. Which, strictly speaking, isn't even coded in terms of politics of red versus blue. This is just literally people in a city, just people who happen to be present. The thing that has to be broken is this frozen subjective stance of just watching the horrors that are happening out there in the world while you're locked in your daily life that maybe is getting more miserable year by year, but you're still living daily life. You look outside and, the birds are singing. So how do you reconcile these extreme horrors with just having to live a life? Generally, the difficulty has been getting people in the first world to realize their full involvement in what's happening out there in the third world. That globalization is a material connection between the first world and the third world. That you're buying an iPhone is causing the miserable conditions in Congo. And even if you're completely mobilized against this, there's both an extreme difficulty in getting this to translate politically, and even on a level of protest and whatnot, you're still dealing with a huge leviathan that only morphs and adjusts around your resistance. But with the complete opening of violence in Minnesota and the murders of Renee and Alex Pretti, we are not in this same situation where people are being targeted for their identity, and they aren't even being targeted for being, people in Minneapolis, like just a quote-unquote blue city. That frame that provides meaning to why a person was brutally unalived by the state. So in particular racism, but also sexism, homophobia, classism, or being, unhoused. All of those quote-unquote reasons that someone gets brutally destroyed by the state, that itself is being disavowed by the state, saying, we don't care, we'll get you all. That's the message from the state. And so they want us to cower and run away from them in response and not mobilize into any form of resistance, because the only thing that prevents that from happening is standing up to it physically, taking actual action. And individual people should not be the ones to have to do that. There needs to be an organized force against force. If the National Guard does not stand up to defend the people of Minneapolis from being executed, then militias will be the only alternative, and that will open us up to a far worse condition. The risks that must be taken to defend the people of Minneapolis are already there. You can't say all we can do is watch. We can't mobilize against it, because that's an arms race that we're going to all lose. You've already lost at that point. So this pathetic stance of some of you will unalive, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. That is all we're getting from Democratic leadership. It makes me think of Star Trek: The Next Generation's pilot episode, where they've come to a planet where an alien force is attacking the planet and unaliving people, but the people from the Enterprise hold back from intervening even though people are unaliving, because they don't know the situation and aren't there to interfere with alien interactions. They have to be very careful with how they find involvement. But the difference here is they do get involved. They do go down there, risk their own bodies, try to help people. They dig into the reasons why. So this out there fantasy, we're just watching thing is not the stance of the Enterprise either. They are getting fully involved, but it's very careful. It's very thoughtful. So that's the involvement that's necessary to actually stop things here. It needs to be organized, and it puts people who are trained to resist people at risk. And that risk is open. You have to take it. Otherwise, the only life that is being offered us in American society is this scopic, live your daily life, watch your neighbors be executed, and that's your life. The only response to the thing that's coming to unalive you is to take action. And it has to be the right action in the hands of the right people. All you have to do is stand in the way.